Hi there, and welcome to another episode of the Divorce Couch. So, as you can see today, we are all in the same room, which is amazing. So, for those of you that are new, my name is Claire, and I'm a divorce coach in Coleraine in Northern Ireland.
My name is Simone, and I'm a divorce coach based in Germany.
And my name is Salma, and I'm a divorce coach based in London.
So we started our YouTube channel, The Divorce Couch, in October last year. So we're not up to our first birthday yet. Feels like longer sometimes, actually. And this is the first time that we have met. The first time that we have been in the one room, and I get the privilege of having these wonderful ladies and their families in my country. So they're in my patch. So I have become tour guide for the north of Ireland for my friends. And it has been the most amazing week. So the week is over tomorrow. And it was really interesting when we met, because we first met on our divorce training program in about February a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's the first time we have been in the same space as each other, what we found was we know each other so well, because we're always having coffee and we're always on phone calls and video calls and all sorts of stuff. It was like as if we'd known each other our whole lives, and there was no strangeness. It was really, really interesting how it unpacked. So how is it for you ladies?
Well, I remember when we drove up to your house, we said, how tall are you all? We had this connection, and I have to bring it back. I remember when I was in Germany and in Singapore, and I couldn't leave the country, and I knew of my friends back in Germany, and with the technology, we had these connections through calls and WhatsApp, but I was missing was the personal encounter. I think the hugging and
the 4D experience.
The 4D experience. Yeah. And I think it was long due that we come together and just touch each other, but the beauty of Zoom will always remain. I coach a lot on Zoom, but I think this is a beautiful encounter to see you and it just touch. 4D will probably be a good thing. So I love that experience.
Yep. And I think it's interesting because we do speak a lot on the phone and on Zoom, and obviously to do the recordings, etc. And very often we've had the kids pop in and say hello
into the back of the calls.
And so it's almost as if we kind of knew the children, but we didn't know the children. So we know so much about each other's children, and the children pop it on the calls and they say hello, and we say, how was your new day at school, or how was this, because we know what's going on in their lives. But it was a very sort of, I think, fueled a lot by COVID as well, because prior to that, I don't think I've ever had a relationship that started on Zoom and then sort of went into a very personal, important relationship to me.
Tinder, maybe.
Tinder. I think that's another episode altogether. But it was interesting because for me, being in the corporate environment, Zoom meetings were quite normal, but they were only ever in a professional capacity.
Yes.
But this became slowly, the first Zoom session we had was actually a professional learning thing, right?
We
were going to get together to learn something that we needed for the training, but it very quickly turned into conversations that we needed to have.
Can I just throw in what I taught my children before we left is, because we were participants of the same course, but even on Zoom, I was attracted to certain faces, and it turned out to be you and you, right? I said, oh, I wish I get to know them, right? And it's interesting that even on Zoom, there is energy going back and forth.
Actually, that's a really good point, because I remember you speaking on some of the Zoom trainings that we had and thinking, oh, she sounds really interesting. And it's just funny. And Salma, you were always like the calm, the voice of calm. But it's quite funny. I am happy to admit that I am not tech savvy yet. So one of the other ladies, Jackie, who started our divorce couch with us, sent a message into the public group within the private training community and said that she would like some help with something to do with social media posting. And Salma said that she would help. And I private messaged Jackie and said, you're braver than me. I wouldn't have put that up, but can I join? And when I joined on the Zoom meeting, Simone was there. So that's how the four of us all got together. So Selma in her teaching capacity in IT, and me with my need to learn, but too afraid to have a voice at that point. And so from there, we have all got to this point because we ended up having coffees on Sunday mornings normally. And we do like a WhatsApp video or a Zoom. And then we just thought, let's do something more with this, because it's really interesting how, I mean, our sort of connection point is that we are all divorced, and that we all decided to do something with our stories to help other people, because our stories have just had so many difficulties in them. And if we can help somebody to have a shorter gap with the difficulties, or maybe understand what's going on in an easier way, well, that's what we all wanted. But yet we have more than that in common when we got to know each other.
And I think that's where the idea for the divorce couch came. Do you remember? We were having these Sunday morning coffee calls where, although we were sort of discussing the training course and sort of trying to learn from each other, but because of the topic that we were discussing and the personal experiences that we had, we started almost in some capacity coaching each other. Not intentionally, but we were, somebody would say, actually, I've experienced that, and this is how I felt. And I can't remember who said it, and we said, there's lots of people out there that are feeling like this. Maybe this is something that we need to put out there, because I think for the four of us, we were further into our journey than the people that we coach, obviously. And so we were almost in a place where we could talk about these things with a little bit of hindsight. Right? Not to say that we know all the answers, because through our relationship over the last year, I think we can all agree that we've also done a huge amount of learning and growth about how far we thought we were, and things have come up, and things have been triggered, and things have been processed. But I just think that, that's where the idea came from, is that we all need someone to be able to have a conversation with, that we can process and learn.
I mean, before we sat down this morning, we discussed what do we want to talk about, and it is connectivity. And who would have thought? We are so lucky that not only have we had a common denominator in terms of learning together, then very slowly a friendship grew out of this, and then the YouTube divorce couch happened, and now that we are together, we manifest a friendship that we didn't know was there. But we are still divorced women. So, and even though we coach and we talk a lot about, I think 50% when we come together is a lot about, what also supervision, what is happening with our client. So, what we're helping each other out, what would be the best thing to do, or just let go. But we are also still, after all these years, divorced women. And last night, you and I share a home in an Airbnb. I don't know, for 2 hours, we still talk about, how did it all unfold? It's just that we are not defined by our divorce. We grew around it. There is a therapy which says, your grievance, your loss does never go away, but you grow alive around it. And it still comes up, but now we see it in our children. We talked about it this morning at the breakfast table. What did our divorce do to our children, right? You move forward, you try to protect them, but they too have their own personal journey with that. So I think that is important to acknowledge. It will just always be there.
But it doesn't have to define them.
No, it doesn't have to define.
I don't feel that I am defined by having had by having experienced a divorce, and yet it has changed me to my core, because I have wanted it to change me. I have wanted to learn and to grow and to figure out, who was I, who was he, how did it work out, where do I want to go in my future? And I started to learn to ask myself different questions. And I look back now, and I can honestly, with my hand on my heart, say, I wouldn't want my life any other way.
No, or then it does define us, isn't it? So that situations, whatever they are, they all define us. It's just not in a negative way.
Yes, that's true. Yes. It doesn't. It's not the first thing I think about But I am very grateful for my journey, because if I hadn't had that journey, I wouldn't have met you two.
No.
And I mean, the friendship that we have, even though it's over 3 countries, is so important to me. There is a saying that says, you know, look at the 5 people you hang around with the most and the influence they have in your life. And these 2 ladies are definitely in my 5, because we have all grown and faced challenges, even if it's learning and assignments and training and, you know, should we do this and what do you think of this and all of the stuff that we do. And that is really important to me and will always be.
Yeah.
And I think when you said, you know, it's changed you, it has to change you. Right. And we can't fight that change. I think very often, you know, we want to, oh, I'm so sorry, guys.
This is real life.
Yeah. I remember when I first came out of my divorce, and I wanted to get through the divorce, and I remember saying this time and time again, I just want to feel like myself again. I want to feel like myself again. And it was almost as if I wanted to get back to the person that I felt that I had lost in those years of pain and conflict. But now I realize that actually I can never be that person again. I am happy with the person that I am now, but I am a very different person on many different levels. Obviously, there are parts of me that, you know, I have found, but so much of my personality changed that I think that's the mindset that we have to try and reach out to, is that things do change, circumstances change, your personality changes, the experiences that you have you know, sometimes they're very hard to get through, but every time you get through it, you've learned something new about yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
I don't know how many times we can become butterflies, but that certainly was one of those, you know, a butterfly moment for me.
Yeah.
And interestingly, when you just said the 5 people that are that one needs in order to stay connected and healthily feel loved and needed, wanted, everything we need, validated. It's the same for me. And I only know now, or I grew into this friendship. I probably would have never been able in my marriage or prior to the marriage, the person I was then, what was important to me. My divorce has really, I had no idea that this recording would come out to be rather personal, but I had not known how the divorce would make me do some internal search. So when you just said I wanted to be who I was, I don't know who I was then, but I have probably never felt more me now after the divorce and the learning and the opportunity it gave me than I am now. Last night, we did karaoke. I would have never, ever in my life felt comfortable to do a karaoke with anyone, because I would have been so self-conscious.
Can I just say I probably still am? I wasn't there last night.
Okay, well, we do that later. Okay, we have a little bubbles and then and that's beautiful for me. That came out of this long, terrible, painful journey. There was also a lot to gain.
Yeah, and there is this misconception that I felt is that when I was in the painful stages of my divorce, and I was constantly talking about what had happened and how I was feeling, and I almost felt as if I shouldn't be talking about this. You know, were people getting bored of my sad story? Were people sick and tired of hearing?
You became very aware of
about they might have been, right?
Yeah, poor me, I'm the victim. Look at me, you know. And so I sort of almost like decided that, okay, I'm just going to start relying solely on my therapist, because I was thinking, well, she gets paid to listen to me, right? So I can sit there and I think what's come out of this friendship, for me especially, was I had got to a point in my life where I felt like I had reached a place of peace and acceptance about what happened.
When was that?
You know, before we met, around about the time that I decided to do the course.
Yeah, okay.
And so in my head, I was thinking, I'm over it, right? I'm done, right? I'm through. And, but I think through conversations,
Famous last words.
yeah, through conversations that we've had, actually, it's made me realize that there is no end goal. Just like in life, you never get to the end until, I suppose, you die.
Yeah.
Right. With divorce, it is a constant process. It's always going to be a part of me.
Mm.
Right. And there's always going to be the way that I've learned from you ladies to be able to talk about it. But now when we talk about it, it's not from a place of feeling that I'm a victim.
Can I just add something in? I don't know what you wanted to say. I think what happens when you go through divorce, and when you said I got over it, I think in survival mode, you just push so much into the future.
Yes.
And I think you're so on top of things that on the outside, a lot is working for you and a lot is working for you and a lot was working for me. But I think at least and it just popped up while I'm still doing my ongoing learning. Have I ever grieved what hadn't worked? The emotional part, in survival mode, it's more about doing and, looking at the Maslow pyramid, making sure I have a new, roof above my head. Will the kids be safe? Do we have an income? All these kinds of things. But the emotional, how do you call it? The emotional part, the grieving that something didn't work out, that only comes up now, which probably means that we do feel safe enough to give ourselves the space to look into emotions that would probably otherwise would have held us back. Because if we would have been so sad and grieving and crying all the time, we wouldn't have been able.
But it's a different kind of grieving, right? So the grieving that we do immediately after the breakdown, it's, for me at least, it was all about tears and that sense of frustration and anger and going through the motions and trying to understand my emotions. But the grieving that we do now, when we're having these conversations, it's a different kind of grieving.
It's a deeper one. The other one was more for me, more reactive. I was reacting.
Say reacting.
Yeah, I was reacting because of that. You know what? Ugh, God,
well, what I would say is, so I left my my nursing employment after 36 years on the 30th of June, just this year. And 5 days later, my dad collapsed and he was unconscious for a week and then he passed away. And my dad lived 5 hours away and he had dementia. And what I have learned in my grieving process of divorce is what I have done now is I've taken the summer off and I have just pressed the pause button and thought, I need time. I need to process. I need not to be busy. Because in one of the earlier episodes, when we talked about, what are the things that you do as your default, my default, which wasn't healthy, my coping strategy was to be busy. So I now have been able this summer to pause everything because I left nursing to up and run my business full time as a divorce coach. So I have to get a business off the ground in a business sense. And I mean, there was a huge amount of overwhelm that could have come with that and a huge amount of busyness that I could have put into my life to just bury my head of grief into that journey. And I have paused and stepped back and I have been sea swimming and I have been meeting friends for coffee and I have been weeding in the garden. All of the things that I had no idea how to do when I started my divorce journey. So I have learnt about grief in ways that translates across to other levels of grief. And I find that really interesting because now I think I have a healthier balance within my life, which has come from my learning, which really probably started on my divorce journey. That grief process, which starts before marriage ends, but then goes on for a long time afterwards. And we still learn and grow. So I look now and I think I am in a healthier place. I am not ready to hit the ground running, which is a phrase I used all the time because I was like Superwoman on speed. And just because I could doesn't mean I should. So I have stepped back. And for me, that is a wonderful gift that I have given myself permission to open and receive, which I wouldn't have done.
And I mean, coming back to like the whole connection thing, I think that sometimes when we are in that place where we need to slow down, etc., we're really relying on the people that are right there around us, right? We go to, our best friends or our sisters or our parents or whoever it is in that you've relied on. But I now believe that don't be scared of reaching out to people that may not be the obvious people that need to be there for you at that point in time. What we need to look for is people that are able to listen to us, support us, validate us. Yes, because my family definitely validated my my emotions at that time, but they were also grieving.
Yes.
They were
Absolutely.
also grieving.
Mhm.
So their ability to be independent and sort of push me forward and get me to sort of come out of that grief was very limited because they were also grieving.
Yeah.
And that's what I think the great thing about this friendship is that we were able to connect. We weren't grieving. We weren't in the depths of that grieving when we met.
Mhm.
So we were able to provide each other with a perspective that maybe we would not have been able to get from somebody that was grieving with us at that point in time.
Which really
Yeah,
speaks.
that's very true.
That really speaks for support groups.
Yeah.
So, because you don't have to explain yourself what you're going through. You know what? It can be any kind of support groups, any kind of groups that will help you go through a challenging time. It could be the Anonymous Alcoholics, that's 12-step program. All these groups are built on the connectivity that we need in order to move forward. And nobody will ask you if you come for the 10th time and speak about the same thing. And they say, yep, been there, done that. That's fine. You're safe.
Yeah.
Right. I think to feel safe.
Yeah.
So we're almost at the end, I think. I think
and just one last thing which I've learned is listen out for the energy that you're getting. I think that's
what do you mean? You're just kind of
feel the energy?
I remember a very close friend of mine at the time who listened to me for hours. Like, she was my go-to person because I knew that she would just listen. But I would leave that conversation feeling even worse than when I'd walked in.
okay.
Yeah, so feeling the energy, feeling it,
And so it's really, how do you feel with that person when you've left, when you've offloaded?
Oh, you mean when they're kind of like leeches, when you're kind of like, oh, somebody had just, drained my energy?
I mean, I can't fault her thinking back because she did listen to me. And at that point in time, maybe that's what I needed.
Yeah.
But it was all about reinforcing, there was like,
I'd say validating of your experience and staying in that validation without moving forward. Yeah, so it becomes something negative because it doesn't actually help you to take a step forward. And in life, if we're not taking a step forward, then we're just stopped and stuck.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what does it remind me? In that we had a very hot summer in Germany, and in public pools we have something. It's kind of like a lazy river, but a very strong current.
Yeah,
you go round and round and round. And it sounds like when you really have to then
at some point you need to climb
step out.
Yeah,
step out.
At some point you need to step out, even though it's nice and cool in that swirly river and it's keeping
there are benefits.
Yeah, there are some benefits, but at some point make that decision to understand, is this relationship helping me?
Yeah, because the relationships and the people we're connected with are really important.
Yeah.
And I take it back to that comment that I had said earlier, who are the 5 people that you spend your time with? And for me, that wasn't necessarily in person, because Salma and Simone aren't in person.
No.
But who are the 5 people that you talk to most? Because are they helping you, or are they allowing you to stay where you are for no other reason than there's just no change? So it is an important thing, because our friendship has moved all of us forward, hasn't it?
Yes.
I think we would all say that.
Can I then add that we actually, I give myself permission, and I think we should all give ourselves permission. With divorce, there's also changes, and there might be changes also in friendship.
There are always changes in
right?
friendships.
So that there's very well the chance that friendships that we had have run its course and new people walk into your life, and that is just very
and don't be
natural and
scared
very
of that. Yeah.
No,
some friendships don't
Embrace
serve you well as you move forward,
no,
as you're finding your feet. But it's not that there needs to be a falling out. It's just there's almost like a natural falling away.
yes,
Isn't there?
Yeah.
It's like there are seasons in life, and there can be seasons in friendship, and they can just come to a natural end.
The inner circle people, right? Then they move a little bit outside. You still have
still there,
dinners,
but
right?
yes,
Not,
yeah.
but not this
Yeah.
intense. Yeah,
Yeah.
great.
So we hope you find this an entertaining and interesting episode that we've done, but we just thought it would be fun when we're physically in the same place to actually do one together. So we hope that this has raised some things for you to think about in a positive way, and we hope that you are leaving this feeling that there is positive energy for you, and we look forward to meeting you again on the Divorce Couch for our next conversation. And we would love you to hit the likes and share and subscribe button to allow this as a platform to reach other people that maybe don't know where to look and don't know where to go and aren't sure how to make any decision moving forward. Thank you very much.
Bye.